Today we're going to take a look at estimation, and estimation is something that you're going to be using a lot in this class, especially when you get to the budgeting chapter. You're going to be estimating how much the cost of things are in different categories. So to start off, first we need to know that there are a variety of ways to estimate. We're going to take a look at 3 different ways, but again, there's a lot of different ways to estimate. And knowing what estimation is. So when we are estimating, we are just getting a rough calculation. Okay, so it's a rough calculation of the value, the number, the quantity, or the extent of something. The first way that we're going to go ahead and take a look at estimation is by rounding. And it's really important that you know your decimal places. So if it tells you to round to the 10th place, you know that you're going one place after the decimal. So looking back to when you were in elementary school and you learned to round, remembering that if it's 0 to 4, the number that comes immediately to the right of the decimal, then you are going to, or wherever the place that you're rounding to, you're going to keep it. The same if it is 5 to 9, then you're going to go ahead and you will round up. Really important, if you are rounding to a given place, so it tells you to round to the 10th place or tells you to round to the nearest whole number, you do not want to write any trailing zeros after that. The only exception to the rule would be if we're talking about money. Then we want to make sure that we have those places there, or if it's needed to become a whole number or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look. So the next one is, the example is 7.48, and we're going to round that to the nearest 10th. So remember, the 10th place is right where the 4 is. So I'm going to look to the right. It's an 8, so it's going to go ahead and it is going to round up. It is going to round to 7.5. It is not rounding to 7.50. If it's rounding to the 10th place, it wants to stop at that place. The exception, again, is if we're talking about money. So if I'm talking about money, I want this to be $7.50. Looking at the same number, but we're going to round it to a different place this time, we're going to go ahead and we are going to round to the nearest whole number. So again, looking to the place to the right, this would go ahead and this would just round to 7. It's not rounding to 7.00 unless we're talking about money. Then again, we're going to go ahead and we are going to round to 7.00. When you're using rounding to go ahead and do different operations, you can round to different places. Some people will just round the answers. Some people will round the inputs, so that way you can do them mentally. So for example, we could go ahead and we could round 743. We might go ahead and round that to 740. We might go ahead and round 21. We might just round that to 20 to make it a little bit easier to multiply in our head. If we do that, we're going to go ahead and we would get 14,800. Someone might say, well, what if I just round to 700 times 20? That works too. That's another way of rounding. The next one, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to round this one a little bit differently. So I'm still going to keep this as 1,225, but instead of 24, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide by 25. So it's really easy for me to divide by 25 in my head because I like to think about it in terms of quarters. So if I was thinking I have $12.25, how many quarters would I have? So if I know that there's 4 quarters in $1, and I have $12, then I would know I have 48 quarters right there, but I have an extra 25 cents. So I know that I would have 49 quarters. Again, this is another thing that we can do when shopping. So maybe we go ahead. Some people might round these to the nearest whole number. Some people might go ahead and say that this is $1.70 plus $2.10. plus $3.50, and then we can go ahead and we can add those together. And if we do that, I'm going to write the answer off to the side just to have space. We end up with $7.30 about. The next type of estimating that we have is called front-end estimation. And so with front end estimation, we honestly just look at the highest place value and all the other digits become 0. So we're not actually rounding them like we would by looking at the place values to the right. So we could go ahead and we could look at this first one and I could say, okay, so here I'm going to have 200 divided by 50. Again, I'm just taking the highest place value. And if I go ahead and I divide that, I would go ahead and I would end up with 4. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do this one in 2 different ways. So some people, when you're doing front end, will just take the 1600 just to be a little bit more accurate, plus 200. And so we're going to end up with 1800. Some people will take it right literally as it says. And so then they would just take the highest place value. I apologize, that's my dog. And so they'll take 1000 plus 200. And so we're gonna get 1200. So you notice that my estimated answers are very different. So the first one being a little bit more accurate. And then the last one, we could go ahead and again, using front end estimation, I would have 700 times 30. If I do that, I would end up with 21,000. And then the last method that we're going to take a look at is adjusted front end estimation. So this is probably one of the more accurate ways that we could go ahead and look at. So when I do this, I'm going to use front end estimation just like we did above. So I have my 3,000 minus my 2,000. So I end up with 1,000. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust by taking the second line. So I'm going to have 800 minus 100 and I get 700. And then if you add those two together, you'll end up with 1,700. Next one, same idea. I'm going to have 6,000 minus 4,000. Again, we're just taking whatever numbers are there. We're not rounding them at all. So I'm going to get 2,000. And then I'll take 300 minus 500. And I get negative 200. So now I'm going to go ahead, when I combine that, it's like I'm subtracting. So I get 1,800. Then I'm going to go ahead and try this one with money. So this is a really good method to use when we're talking about money. So I can go ahead and I can take all my front values. So I have 3, 4, and 9. So we have 16. Then we have, I'm going to actually round the change. So I could have 30 cents plus 50 cents plus 10 cents. And if I do that, I'll get 90 cents. And then if I just go ahead and add that together, I'll get $16.90. It's really, really important for you to show your work when you're doing these problems. As you can tell, sometimes there's a few different ways that you can round or combine them. So I need to see what it is that you're adding or how you're rounding or what it is you're multiplying together, so then I can give you full credit. So just because your answer might be different than the person that is sitting next to you or your friend or whatever, doesn't mean that your answer is wrong. I just need to see what it is that you did.